Once upon a time, in an ancient, sprawling forest, lay the quiet village of Willow Creek. It was a place where people lived simple lives, dependent on the heavy timber that grew deep in the woods. Among the woodcutters was a man named Jake. He was a quiet, diligent man with rough, calloused hands and a gentle heart. Jake was content with very little. His true wealth lay in his modest cottage where his wife, Sarah, kept their home full of warmth, and his 2 young sons, Tommy and Billy, filled the rooms with laughter. Every morning before dawn, Jake would set off for the logging yards owned by Mr. Langford, the local timber merchant. Langford was a man who measured everything in coins and viewed his workers not as men with families, but as tools that needed no maintenance. One morning, as Jake pulled on his worn leather boots, he noticed Sarah staring quietly out the window, a folded paper held tightly in her hand. "Sarah?" Jake asked Softy, walking over. "Is everything all right? I need to head out soon." Sarah turned, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Jake, the schoolmaster spoke to me yesterday. Tommy and Billy's term fees are past due. The school can't keep buying their books without payment. The master said if we cannot pay by the end of this week, the boys won't be allowed back." Jake felt a cold ache in his chest. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his remaining coins, setting them on the wooden table. It wasn't even a third of what was needed. "I'll ask Mr. Langford for our full wage today," Jake promised, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "And I'll ask if he can spare a small advance. Don't lose heart." At the logging site, the air was heavy with the scent of freshly cut pine and the bitter chatter of tired men. "Don't hold your breath, Jake," whispered Harry, an older woodcutter whose back was permanently bent from years of haulage. "Today is payday, but Langford's mood is darker than usual. He shorted me last month, claiming I owed him for an axe handle that snapped while I was working. He cut my pay too," another woodcutter chimed in, wiping sweat from his brow. "My little girl was feverish, and because I stayed home one afternoon to tend to her, he deducted half my earnings. The man has ice in his veins." Jake stayed quiet, but his heart sank. When the sun began to drop behind the mountains, the workers gathered outside Langford's stone office. Langford stepped out, counting a thick stack of bills, but when he looked up at the tired men, his face hardened. "There's been a delay in the timber markets in the city," Langford announced coldly. "The stock in the warehouse hasn't moved. I can only give each of you $2,000 this month instead of the agreed $3,000. A murmur of shock went through the crowd. "Mr. Langford, please," Harry pleaded. "We worked 8 hours every single day. We did extra loads." "Take it or leave it, Harry," Langford barked. "If you don't like it, there are 10 men down in the valley who would happily take your place for less." Jake stepped forward, his voice steady despite the anxiety gripping his throat. "Mr. Langford, my boys will be turned away from school if I cannot pay their fees. I haven't taken a single day off. I worked through the rain last week just to finish clearing the East Ridge. Please, sir, just what was promised." Langford smirked slightly, tossing a thin stack of bills into Jake's hands. "Prices drop, wages drop, Jake. That is how business works. If you can't manage your household on $2,000, perhaps you ought to eat less." When Jake returned home that evening, the smell of warm soup could not mask the heavy silence. He placed the reduced wage on the table. Sarah didn't yell. She simply sat down and wept quietly into her apron. The money was barely enough to cover basic groceries, let alone the school fees. "I won't let them drop out," Jake said, his voice trembling with quiet resolve. "Starting tomorrow, after my shift at the yard, I will go into the valley and look for extra work. I'll clear brush, sweep storehouses, anything." For the next 2 days, Jake worked double. He spent his days hauling heavy logs for Langford and his evenings walking from shop to shop, farm to farm, begging for odd jobs. But the village was small, and no one had work to spare. By the third evening, exhausted, hungry, and carrying the burden of his failure, Jake took a shortcut through an unfamiliar, dense path at the base of the rocky hills. Suddenly, the ground beneath his feet began to vibrate. A low, thunderous rumble echoed through the trees. Jake turned and gasped. A stray herd of wild buffaloes, spooked by something in the brush, was charging straight down the narrow pass toward him. Panic seized him. With no trees low enough to climb, Jake spotted a hidden crack in the limestone cliff nearby. He dived inside just as the herd thundered past, the dust choking the air and the sound deafening his ears. Inside the dark cave, Jake collapsed against the cool stone, his chest heaving. "Thank God," he whispered, closing his eyes. When the dust settled, Jake noticed a soft, ambient light flickering deeper inside the cavern. Curious, he walked further in until he reached a high, vaulted chamber. Resting on a smooth stone altar was an ancient, beautifully woven basket. Impulsively, thinking it might be useful to carry firewood, Jake reached out to pick it up.
"Hold your hand, traveler."
A voice reverberated through the cave, deep as the mountains themselves. The shadows merged, and from the light emerged a towering figure, a genie clad in robes that seemed woven from twilight itself. Jake stumbled back, terrified. "Forgive me, I meant no disrespect. A herd of wild animals chased me inside. I was only seeking shelter." The genie observed Jake with glowing, ancient eyes. The fear in Jake's heart was clear, but beneath it lay a spirit devoid of malice. "Do not tremble, Woodcutter," the genie said softly. "This cave is bound by ancient law. Only one whose heart is pure, uncorrupted by greed or malice, can pass through its threshold without being consumed by the mountain's curse. You entered safely because your heart carries no poison." The genie gestured toward the altar. "That basket belonged to those who protected these woods long ago because of your purity. It is yours now. But hear my warning carefully. The basket will multiply whatever single type of object you place inside it for the first time, but it responds strictly to need, not greed. Whatever item you place inside first is the only item it will ever recreate for you. Use it wisely, and never lose the compassion that brought you here." Before Jake could answer, the genie faded into mist, leaving the cavern silent. Jake hurried home, holding the basket tightly under his arm. When he arrived, he found Sarah sitting by the fire, mending the boys' torn school jackets. He explained everything, the cave, the genie, and the warning. Sarah looked at the basket skeptically, then at Jake's exhausted face. "A magical basket? Jake, you are overworked and tired." "I know it sounds impossible, Sarah," Jake said softly, "but let us try. What do we have that is honest and useful?" Jake remembered a rare block of sweet-smelling sandalwood he had found deep in the forest months ago, a piece he had kept as a reminder of the forest beauty. Sarah fetched the small wood block from their cupboard and gently placed it at the bottom of the basket. Instantly, a warm, fragrant glow radiated from the basket. The wood trembled, and within seconds the basket overflowed with smooth, flawless logs of premium sandalwood. Sarah gasped, clutching her chest. Jake stared in awe. The next morning, Jake did not go to the logging yard. He took the sandalwood to the central market. The rich fragrance drew merchants from miles away. By noon, he had sold every piece for a fair, honest price, earning enough to pay his children's school fees 3 times over and keep his family fed for months. When he returned home and placed the earnings on the table, Sarah wept again, this time with overwhelming relief. "We are saved, Jake," she whispered. "You don't ever have to go back to Mr. Langford's yard. You can start your own small shop right here." Jake looked at the stack of coins, then thought of Harry, whose aching back barely allowed him to stand, and the young woodcutter whose sick daughter lacked medicine because of Langford's deductions. "No, Sarah," Jake said quietly, his eyes resolute. "Good fortune was given to me because my heart was clean. If I keep this only for ourselves while my friends suffer under a cruel man, I would be no better than Langford." The following morning, Jake walked down to the logging yard. Mr. Langford was shouting at Harry, who was struggling to lift a heavy timber beam alone. "Jake!" Langford sneered as he approached. "You're late. Get to work, or I'm cutting another $500 from your pay." Jake stood tall, looking Langford straight in the eye. "I'm not here to cut wood for you, Mr. Langford. I came to collect my tools." He then turned to the gathered woodcutters. "Brothers, stop your axes for a moment." The men paused, confused. "I have started a new woodworking business," Jake announced in a clear voice that echoed across the yard. "I have secured high-quality timber supply. I am hiring every man here who wishes to leave. The work will be fair, the hours will be 8, and every man will receive $4,000 a month, paid on the exact day it is earned." The yard went silent. Langford's face turned bright red with rage. "Are you insane?" Langford roared. "You can't afford that. You're a penniless peasant. Men, don't listen to him. He's lying." Harry stepped forward, looking at Jake's calm, honest face. "Jake has never told a lie in all the years I've known him." Harry threw his heavy axe to the ground with a loud thud. "I'm with you, Jake." One by one, every single woodcutter dropped his tools and walked over to stand behind Jake. Langford stood alone in his empty yard, screaming threats into the wind, but no one turned back. Months passed and Willow Creek transformed. Jake used the magic basket responsibly, placing sandalwood inside only when his business needed raw materials to fulfill honest orders. He built a thriving workshop where every worker was treated as a partner, earned a comfortable living, and went home to happy families. And as for Jake, every evening when he returned home, he would watch Tommy and Billy doing their schoolwork by the warm hearth, knowing that true magic wasn't found in a cave. It lived in an unselfish heart. Moral of the story: the greatest blessings belong to those who use their success to help others, not just themselves.